Corpus Christi is one of the most fascinating festivals in the Christian tradition, yet due to its complexity, it's not observed by all denominations. Despite being celebrated for generations over thousands of years, its true origins and meaning remain unclear to many. In fact, the story of Corpus Christi is often misunderstood, even by some Christians who don't fully grasp its significance. But starting now, we'll uncover the real story together. So, let's dive into it. The story begins in 1263. At that time, Europe was a patchwork of deep religious beliefs and practices. Amidst this backdrop was a priest from Prague, a city in northern Italy. His name was Peter, and he was going through a serious crisis of faith. He began to doubt the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Holy Eucharist, a struggle that weighed heavily on his soul. Desperate for answers and seeking to strengthen his faith, he decided to make a pilgrimage to Rome, the eternal city. In those days, many believers made pilgrimages to the tombs of the apostles, Saints Peter and Paul in Rome, hoping to renew their faith and receive divine grace. And so, Peter set off from Prague, traveling through various regions on his spiritual journey. Along the way, he stopped in the town of Bolsena. Bolsena was known for its devotion to Saint Christina, a virgin and martyr from the 3rd or 4th century. This small town, with its enormous and beautiful lake, was steeped in faith and religious history. Saint Christina was often called the Saint of Misfortunes because of the many martyrdoms she endured for her beliefs. Born into a pagan family, Christina converted to Christianity at a young age, defying her parents' wishes. Her unwavering devotion to her faith enraged her father, a prominent figure in Bolsena. Determined to make her renounce Christianity, he subjected her to numerous tortures and attempts on her life. Yet, according to tradition, every attempt to kill her failed, thanks to miraculous interventions. In a final attempt to end her life, her father tied a heavy stone to her and threw her into Lake Bolsena, convinced this would be her end. But, as the story goes, another miracle occurred. Instead of sinking, the stone Christina was tied to floated on the surface of the water, keeping her from drowning. If you're eager to hear the rest of this incredible story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep watching the video. As Christina floated on the lake, safe from harm, it was clear that divine intervention was at work, protecting her through her trials. This miracle was a powerful display of God's protection and faithfulness, even in the face of impossible challenges. Moreover, as Saint Christina floated on the stone, her footprints were left imprinted on it, and to this day, these footprints remain as tangible evidence of the miracle. They have been preserved throughout the centuries, becoming a sacred relic for the faithful, a symbol of Saint Christina's presence and the divine intervention that saved her from certain death. These footprints became an object of deep veneration for local Christians and pilgrims who traveled to Bolsena seeking healing, protection, and spiritual guidance. Witnessing this miraculous event, Christina's father collapsed in shock and died. Although Christina survived this trial, she continued to face multiple attempts on her life, but each time she was saved through divine intervention until her eventual death. Devotion to Saint Christina grew intensely in Bolsena, and countless pilgrims visited her tomb, seeking her blessings and protection. It was in this deeply religious atmosphere that the priest, Peter, decided to celebrate a Mass in honor of Saint Christina, asking for her intercession to help strengthen his faith in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. During the Mass, while Peter was still grappling with his doubts, something truly extraordinary occurred as he lifted the consecrated host. During the moment of consecration, the host began to bleed. Blood flowed from it, staining his hands and the corporal, a square cloth placed on the altar. This unexpected and astonishing miracle left Peter and the congregation in awe. Overwhelmed by the sight, Father Peter, filled with emotions and a renewed sense of faith, was unable to continue the Mass. Carefully placing the bleeding host on the corporal, tears of joy streamed down his face as he moved to the sacristy. Along the way, drops of blood fell onto the floor and the steps of the altar, leaving marks that would later become cherished relics. News of the miracle spread quickly throughout the church, and other priests soon arrived to verify what had happened. They were equally astonished by the blood-stained corporal and the blooded stones that bore witness to the miraculous event. With a heart full of gratitude and still in shock, Peter decided to take the blood-stained corporal directly to Pope Urban IV, who was residing in the nearby town of Orvieto. Upon hearing Peter's detailed account of the miracle, Pope Urban IV was deeply moved. He immediately recognized the event as a divine sign, confirming the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. The Pope then recalled the visions of Saint Juliana of Liège, which had revealed the need for a special feast dedicated to the Eucharist. Here, it's worth pausing to explore this fascinating story in more detail. Saint Juliana of Liège played a crucial role in the establishment of the Feast of Corpus Christi. In the early 13th century, at the age of 16, Juliana began experiencing mystical visions that revealed the need for a celebration honoring the Eucharist. In one of these visions, she saw a bright white disk with a dark spot on one side. This image puzzled her deeply, and she spent years in prayer, seeking to understand its meaning. Eventually, through spiritual discernment, Juliana came to understand the vision's significance. The white disk represented the Church and its devotion to the Eucharist, while the dark spot symbolized the absence of a special feast that adequately honored the Blessed Sacrament. Although Holy Thursday already commemorated the institution of the Eucharist, there was no specific celebration focusing solely on the Blessed Sacrament. This feast, which was also associated with the sorrow of Christ's Passion, led Juliana to realize that Jesus desired a joyful and solemn celebration exclusively dedicated to the glory of the Eucharist. Initially reluctant to reveal her visions, Juliana hesitated for 20 years before finally finding the courage to share her experience with a trusted priest named Jacques Pantaleon. He firmly believed in the authenticity of Juliana's visions and encouraged her to spread her message. However, time passed, and Juliana eventually died, with her visions falling into obscurity. Years later, that same priest, Jacques Pantaleon, the only one who knew of her visions, became Pope Urban IV. When Pope Urban IV heard the account of the Eucharistic miracle from Father Peter, he was deeply moved. His spiritual insight and memory of Juliana's visions led him to realize that this miracle was a divine sign. Acting swiftly, he set out to verify the miracle and spread its message by establishing a new liturgical feast. To confirm the miracle's authenticity, Pope Urban IV convened a group of trusted theologians and scholars, including the renowned saint Thomas Aquinas and Saint Bonaventure. These wise and holy men were sent to Bolsena to investigate the event and examine the relics. The theologians conducted a thorough analysis, studying the blood-stained corporal, the bloodied stones, and gathering testimonies from those who had witnessed the miracle. Once the miracle's authenticity was confirmed, the theologians returned to Orvieto, bringing the sacred relics, including the blood-stained corporal. As news of the miracle spread, many faithful began to follow them in procession, joined by people from nearby villages and towns. The crowd continued to grow as the procession neared Orvieto. Pope Urban IV, having received word that the miraculous relics were approaching, decided to meet the procession in person. Accompanied by clergy and church dignitaries, the Pope descended from his ceremonial carriage and knelt in adoration as the relics arrived at a bridge just outside the city. In a moment of great solemnity, Pope Urban IV, in his pontifical vestments, reverently received the blood-stained corporal and the consecrated host. He then joined the faithful in a procession back to Orvieto. This event marked the first Eucharistic procession, which would later become a central part of the Feast of Corpus Christi. Convinced of the miracle's significance, Pope Urban IV issued a papal bull in 1264, officially establishing the Feast of Corpus Christi. His decree emphasized the need to reaffirm the faithful's belief in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, especially during a time when heresies were challenging this doctrine. To ensure the new feast would be celebrated with great reverence, Pope Urban IV tasked renowned theologians, including St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Bonaventure, with composing hymns and prayers for the liturgy. St. Thomas Aquinas, known for his deep spirituality and intellectual brilliance, presented his hymn, Lauda Sion, a magnificent composition that expresses the reverence due to the Eucharist and the belief in Christ's real presence. So moving and profound were St. Thomas's words that all the other theologians tore up their own manuscripts in humility, recognizing the perfection of his work. Thus, Lauda Sion became the official hymn of the Feast of Corpus Christi, and its beauty continues to be a testament to St. Thomas's theological and poetic brilliance. The first celebration of the feast, instituted by Pope Urban IV, was a moment of great joy and devotion in the Church. The solemn Eucharistic procession, with the Blessed Sacrament carried through the streets in a monstrance, allowed the faithful to publicly honor Christ's presence in the Eucharist. The town of Orvieto, where Pope Urban IV temporarily resided, became the epicenter of this devotion. To commemorate the miracle, construction of the Orvieto Cathedral began in 1290. This cathedral, a masterpiece of Gothic architecture, was designed to house the blood-stained corporal, a relic of the Bolsena miracle. The first celebration of Corpus Christi and the construction of the Orvieto Cathedral were intertwined events that established a lasting legacy of Eucharistic devotion. These historical moments continue to inspire and strengthen the faith of Christians, reaffirming the central place of the Eucharist in the Church's spiritual life. It's worth noting that some religious denominations may not celebrate or believe in Corpus Christi for various reasons. Differences in theology and interpretation regarding the nature of the Eucharist, or preferences in how the Last Supper is honored, can lead to varied practices. However, despite these differences, the core message remains the same: having faith in God and practicing love, compassion, and respect for others. Respecting religious diversity and promoting understanding among different faith traditions is key to building a more inclusive and tolerant world. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell to activate notifications, leave a like, and watch the next recommended videos. God bless, and see you soon.